Welcome into episode 12 of Hawgs on the Hill, your go-to podcast for an in-depth dive into all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Join us as we dissect the victories, analyze the plays, and revel in the spirit of the Hogs. As always, episode 12 is brought to you by Homefield. Step into the legacy of collegiate style with Homefield's premium vintage apparel. Embrace the spirit of your alma mater or even your favorite team with their meticulously crafted, comfortable, and stylish collections. Elevate your game day attire and celebrate the rich history of college sports at Homefield, where tradition meets modern comfort in every stitch. Promo code Variety Sports in all caps to receive 15% off that first order. And if you haven't checked them out yet, they just dropped this week their Arkansas Platinum box that has brand new things. You know, it comes with 2 brand new t-shirts, a hoodie pullover, a hat, a koozie, and you don't want to miss it. Go check it out. They're fantastic gear. You know, might just have to get one of those myself to break out during football season this year. But, you know, it's going to be a great show today. We're getting more and more exciting snippets, shots, little videos from fall camp as, you know, we're ramping up to, you know, we're just 21 days away from first game. 3 weeks. We will be, not up here, but it will be in Little Rock for the first game of the season. And I think the excitement's building, as a lot of people are saying, trying not to drink the Kool-Aid, but it's hard not to with seeing all these clips and all these, the good things you're hearing out of fall camp and things like that. So fantastic things. And, you know, we'll jump in here with recruiting football news, as Arkansas did have a big recruiting weekend for next year's class and the class for 2026, as they got a big time commitment. We talked about it last week. 2026 4-star defensive end Colton Yarbrough did commit to Arkansas on Saturday, so he is the number 1 player in the state of Oklahoma, and he's going to be a Razorback. So you got to love us going into another state, taking the number 1 overall player. Yes, it's still 2 years away, and that's a lot that could happen. But the fact that, you know, we're able to go out there, recruit Deke Adams, you know, fantastic things on the defensive line so far. Just great to see that. And, you know, right after getting, you know, a couple weeks ago, Reginald Vaughn, defensive tackle, 4-star. So the recruiting has gotten stepped up, and I think Pittman has known that, and, you know, all these guys kind of see that as well. And, you know, you love to see that happening, big time commitment out of Oklahoma. Your thoughts there?
You know, the biggest thing to me, this is the number 1 player coming out of Oklahoma for that draft class or recruiting class, whatever you really want to classify it as. Everybody likes to give Arkansas as a program so much flack whenever we lose out on like the number 1 player in Arkansas, for example. But on the flip side, sometimes we're able to go out and get the number 1 player in a neighboring state, and everybody celebrates and thinks it's an awesome win and that our recruiting is doing great, and they are. But I think that's one thing people have to kind of take with a grain of salt when you do, you know, maybe lose out on one of the higher tier guys in state. There's other schools out there that are trying to poach these kids away, just like we're trying to do the same thing in our neighboring states as well, just like this example right here. So definite props to the recruiting team overall, especially Travis Williams. I think he's been doing a bang up job recruiting lately. Just some of the names he's been able to pull in this far in advance, some of the guys that are coming in next year and then the year after. I mean, there's 4 and 3 stars just sprinkled in everywhere, and then guys with a ton of potential, you know, like Nigel Pringle's prime example. I think somebody that is underrated that's going to come in and do big things. So to me, this was a huge pickup, getting somebody that's got several other places he could have went to. I don't think Oklahoma was on his top 5, but I know Oklahoma State was. And then I believe Georgia and
Georgia,
LSU,
Colorado, LSU.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the fact that we're able to go out and compete in the recruiting field for some of these players of this caliber, considering we didn't have a great year last year, it is a true testament to what the university is able to provide. From a development standpoint, the coaches are doing a great job building relationships with these kids. I think that's one thing we have going for us that is a little bit better than some other universities, is the personalities we have in our coaching positions. That provides quite a bit of extra. I mean, that's we talked to him about it whenever the news came out that Addison Nichols was transferring here. We got him on the show. That was one of the biggest things he talked about was the relationships he had with the Arkansas coaching staff were better, even though they were shorter in duration than they were with his own Tennessee staff at Tennessee. And so that's something to be commended for. That Pittman has done a great job getting guys that really fit the Arkansas culture. And I think you're seeing the dividends pay off. This is a prime example of that, being able to go take the number one player out of a different state that really, could have gone anywhere he wanted. So I think that bodes well for us. And if we can, bounce back this year and have a rebound season, win 6, 7, 8 games, that only adds to that edge, with this coaching staff that's able to do this as is. So, big things coming. I think this is hopefully the new trend, if you will, with what this staff is able to provide. I know, Bobby Petrino is going to be able to out-recruit quite a few other guys in the SEC with just what he brings to the offensive side of the ball, the prowess and the name that he has in college football. Everybody knows who Bobby Petrino is. Guys are going to want to come play for him, especially the skill position guys. And so I think we'll start to see some good things coming from there. And then obviously the defensive side of the ball has been killing it lately in the recruiting trail. So I thought this was a huge pickup that I honestly, people said he had a big potential to come here, but I wasn't sure, making it to the top 5, we had talked about it. After that, it's kind of a coin flip on where they end up landing. And kudos to the entire recruiting team on making this one happen. I thought that was a big pickup.
Yeah, especially when you're going up a program like, I think Kirby Smart at Georgia. I mean, with how much success they've had lately, Kirby Smart comes calling. It's one of those things that's hard to turn down. But like you said, those relationships matter. And I think that's what you're seeing with Arkansas, and that's what Pittman puts an emphasis on. He was on top of being a great O-line coach coming in. That was one of the big things that was talked about was he is a great recruiter, but he is also, that he's big on that culture and having that relationship with the players. And I think when that happens, you see things like this, getting these 4-star guys. And I think hopefully, like you said, that is becoming more of a common theme with his coaching staff, especially if this team can have a good season, kind of turn things around a little bit, change the narrative, if you will. And I think, from the press conferences I've watched and, things of that nature that you see, I think a little bit more edge from Pittman this season going in. He understands what's at stake. And, I think he's really getting the hang of this head coaching role. He's had mentors like Barry Odom that he's gotten to have on his staff to help him along the way. And then you have, Petrino here now that, same thing. He can learn from him and kind of really understand that as the head coach, you really have to, designate guys. You can't control everything. That's what your staff is for. And hopefully that'll allow him to focus on more of the bigger picture things like recruiting. And hopefully in the season, we'll see it, some of those decision-making things that we saw questionable at times last year.
100%.
And so Colton was not the only recruit of the weekend. You got 3 additional others. You brought in defensive back Shannon Blair. He is actually going to be part of the 2025 class, but he is transferring in from East Mississippi Community College and will be joining in December. So he will be here in December, but will be part of next year's class. You've got running back Cameron Settles, 3-star from Little Rock Parkview. He committed on Saturday as well. Another in-state kid that, you got to love the in-state talent flowing into Arkansas. And then another kid from Oklahoma, you've got defensive back Adam Austin, 3-star as well, that committed shortly right after Colton did. So, big weekend recruiting. And, if you watch the commitment of Cameron Settles after he committed, he even had a message, for him from McFadden. So another in-state, one of the best running backs for Arkansas. So, big things to come. This Arkansas is known for always having really good running backs. You think back to the McFadden days. After that, you had, Raleigh Williams, Alex Collins, Dennis Johnson, guys like that. Up to here recently, Rocket Williams, Rashad Dominion. You got Braylon Russell coming in. That's a really top in-state guy that Pittman has even said, he's going to be in the rotation this year and play a big role on this team.
That gives me hope, man. we're going to run 3 different backs out there throughout the season, I imagine. And that brings back the Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis, McFadden trio that you run all 3 of them out there, do some crazy stuff.
I was about to say, they all play a different style too. You've got Jaquindon Jackson that transferred in, that he's more of a bigger in between the tackles type of guy. That also has great burst of speed. You've got Rashad Dubinion that's more of a shifty kind of speed, beat you on the edge type of guy. And then you've got Braylon Russell that's just like almost a big goal line type back. He's probably bigger than he is, but reminds me of a Kiero Small type of guy that, those goal line formations, who was coming out of the bowling ball, big in a sense, Kiero Small. So,
yep. Good memories, man.
And so we have some more additions to our preseason awards watch list. Last week we talked about we had Landon Jackson, Isaiah Satania, and Cam Ball. Well, this week adding to that list is Luke Haas, as he is named to the Comeback Player of the Year watch list. And I would be lying if I didn't think he had a really, really good chance to win that with the type of offense he's going to be in, the strides they said he made in his recovery and, development over the offseason. This kid is going to be fun to watch this season.
Yeah, he's a mismatch nightmare, dude. I mean, he's a Hunter Henry type of player, at the tight end position where he can really take advantage of the matchups he's going up against with a lot of potentially undersized or slower linebackers. I mean, he was a ball magnet when he was healthy last year. So I'm excited to see how we utilize him.
I was about to say, you took that right out of my mouth there. I was going to say he's going to be a mismatch for DBs that are going to be smaller guys. He's going to outmatch, slower linebackers that can't keep up with his speed. So either way you look at it, I think he's going to be a favorite target of Taylon Green this year. And then you also add, another guy that's going to be one of those targets. Andrew Armstrong is named to the Biletnikoff Award list. Watch list as well. He's a guy that is expected to have a big season after not really living up to expectations last year. Not to any necessarily fault of his own, but
I thought he did well enough last year considering the circumstances. He was one of the better receivers that we had, one of the most consistent ones, considering how the season went.
Yeah, very true. And when you think about a fun offense and, what you're getting with a Petrino offense, well, we saw some clips of it in practice and, they're talking about, well, along with Petrino coming back, you're going to see the good old classic I formation coming back to this Arkansas offense. We knew what he was able to do that before. We hadn't seen that really, in quite a few years, as with when KJ was here, is more of an RPO spread style offense. You didn't really line up many guys behind, under center, which was one of the biggest complaints with KJ, especially on those short down situations, not lining up under center. But I think you're going to see a lot more of that, and I think you're going to see a lot of variation with this Petrino offense. Like we were talking about before the show, you'll probably see the I formation, the spread, under center, shotgun. You name it, you're probably going to see some type of variation with it. Heck, this may be bold, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see some wildcat formations out there. You never know with how Petrino likes to call plays and coach and, call this offense.
I think the biggest question mark is going to be how well the team picks up on his offense and how open can he get his playbook. And how much does he trust each individual play? How much does he trust each individual formation that the guys are going to understand their assignments? And because, with each different style of formation, you're going to have different assignments on blocking schemes, things of that nature. So it's going to be how open does this offense allow him to call the plays? We know that he can bring a lot to the table and a lot of variation and keep a lot of defenses on their heels. So, running out different schemes and things of that nature throughout each individual possession is going to be something I look forward to. That's kind of how he is. What are the ones we do well that we can depend on? And then what are the ones we can sprinkle in here and there that can provide a splash? I haven't seen I formation at Arkansas in a hot minute. It's been since probably, Alex Collins' time frame. since we've really been able to kind of just line up and pound the ball like that. So we'll see, man. I mean, it's going to provide just another added layer that defenses have to plan for. So that's fun to hear.
Agreed. And so today, Arkansas had its first closed scrimmage of fall camp, one of two that it's going to have. They said and it was closed to the media, so no media was allowed there. The team ran, they guesstimate around 130 to 150 plays through scrimmage. He noted that Pittman noted in his post-game or post-scrimmage press conference where they did have officials there that were SEC refs that had refed several of their games last year and told them call it as they see it. So, like it would be in live game situations, and did say they had very few penalties throughout the day, which is great to hear. We know that was a problem area last year, the number of pre-snap penalties, post-snap penalties, whatever you want to call it, with, false starts, holding, things that just shouldn't be happening. And so that's good to hear that. And then when you think throughout the scrimmage, they went through different, 1 versus 2s, ones versus 1s, 2s on 2s, 3s on 3s, whatever, that's normal for your practices. Well, we're going to go through some of the bigger plays that were noted from the practice. When you look at the passing game, the big one that sticks out to me, and I think there was a clip of it put up on social media afterwards, was Taylor Green hit Isaiah Satania for 45 yards on the first play of scrimmage, which was followed by a 65-yard touchdown pass from Green to Satania as well. And if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what does. The speed Satania has, I think that shows you the development in passing that Green has had. We talked about that. And even in the press conference, Pittman said coming in, and he said, I'm not going to take the words out of Taylor's mouth, but he's not a running quarterback. He's a passing quarterback that is athletic, and if things break down, is going to make you pay, which is great to hear. And, I think this just tells you, part of it was we had some guys sit out due to injury today. We'll get to that in a minute. But late in the scrimmage, you had Green hit Satania again for a 20-yard gain. So I think you're going to see a lot of that connection this year. A favorite target seems to be developing there, probably along with Armstrong. I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see Green have really good connections with all these wide receivers, especially from what we've seen on social media about how this team is really bonded. And he really spent time with those wide receivers in the offseason over the summer, kind of really getting to understand everybody that way. You're on the same page, what the person's going to do, and you feel comfortable and can trust that individual when you're, playing ball and, putting it up there for them.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things about those relationships is you hold each other accountable. The better you are acquainted with each other, the more comfortable you feel, the more comfortable you're going to be to not necessarily call somebody out when they make a mistake, but, hold people accountable. Hey, man, you missed your assignment there. Let's do this better next time. And with those conversations happen back and forth, that's how your team gets better. Individually, it's not requiring the coaches to be the ones that make the corrections all the time, if you will. It's happening, from the ground up. So I think that's something that has been touted about this team so far, is they really do hold each other accountable. They hold each other to a high standard, whether it's in the weight room, on the field, in the film room, whatever the case may be. So I've heard great things from a lot of different individuals about the culture that this team's got currently. I think that will translate well for us to the field. I think the competition level is going to be high enough that we've got our work cut out for us. Everybody knows that. But, we've talked about it quite a bit already in previous shows, but this wide receiver group, there's so many, talented guys on there. I'm not so sure you're going to have like a number one guy that has the majority of the yards and targets. I really do think
just one like true alpha guy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not going to be a Traylon Burks has 80% of the targets, and then you have a handful of guys that get a few others outside of that. Granted, Traylon was so good. I mean, it was warranted, but I think you've got a little bit more balance in this wide receiver room, with all of them having, NFL potential, realistically, in my mind. I mean, I think Isaac Tesla could be an NFL player. I think Satini's got the speed to be an NFL player. I think Armstrong's got it. Obviously, Luke Haas has got potential to be an NFL player. So there's 3 or 4 or 5 guys right there. Broden's huge. So he's got potential as well, just due to his size and his athleticism. So, I mean, you really do have 4, 5, 6 guys you can sling the ball around to. And then even more kind of down the depth chart past them. So I don't know if you're going to have really one guy that is his favorite target. I truly think you'll have those situations where you have 3-4 guys hitting 80 to 100 yards a game. You think back to the Ryan Mallett days. You had a couple different games where you had multiple 100-yard receivers in one game. This could be just like that. It really could.
Yeah, that's true. As we keep running down this list here, you have Marquise Gums, catching a 20-yard pass from Green. Then you have Singleton connecting with David Dozier for a 35-yard touchdown. Singleton later hit Dozier for another 12-yard touchdown. Singleton hit running back Rodney Hill on a wheel route for a 45-yard game. Later in the scrimmage, you had Singleton throwing Monte Harris for a 55-yard touchdown on a busted play. KJ Jackson hitting Cameron Bibby for a 60-yard touchdown with a third group. And then Blake Boda found tight end Andreas Paskey for a 60-yard touchdown. So, all of these guys everybody's got some work. And it's safe to say the way Pittman seemed in press conference, Singleton's pretty much locked up that number 2 spot for, this season. And then you've got KJ Jackson and Blake Boda battling out for that 3rd spot. So, things are looking great with this wide receiver room. I think it's safe to say it's bold, but I think, I would be tempted to say, does Arkansas even have the best? Do they indeed have the best wide receiver room in the SEC?
It's going to be up there. I don't know if you could claim that yet. You're going to have to,
as far as potential.
Potential. I think we're definitely top 3. It's all going to kind of depend on how this offense flourishes. We talked about it last week. If the offensive line can give Talon time, Talon's already been showing that he can hit these guys very, very accurately. I think he's made tremendous strides, especially comparing back to his Boise days. So I'm excited about that. But there's, this is a team sport. Takes a lot of different aspects to have a successful offense. So, about at the end of the season, do we feel like we have the best wide receiver group? We'll see. I think the potential is definitely there.
Yeah, it will be interesting for sure. As you flip over to the run game, Talon Green himself had a 37-yard touchdown run. So, him showing his wheels there that he's got. You had Braylon Russell have a 15-yard run, and then in the red zone, an 8-yard touchdown. And then Tyrell Reed Jr. also had an 8-yard touchdown in the red zone work segment of scrimmage. It is note that Rashad Dubinion and Jaquinda Jackson both did not participate in the scrimmage today, as Jackson is dealing with a sprained ankle, and Dubinion had some knee swelling issues going on, and so they just wanted to be precautionary with that. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, you had DBs Jabari Shaw and Jaden Johnson have an interception each. Brad Spence recorded a sack. Defensive tackle Danny Solly recorded a sack and a tackle for loss. You had linebackers Steven Dix and defensive back TJ Metcalf each have a sack. Jalen Braxton made a tackle for a loss in the red zone. Defensive ends Landon Jackson and Quincy Road both had a sack in the 2-minute drill. So, good things there. And we'll kind of highlight on those defensive tackles and defensive ends in a minute when we break down the defensive line of this Arkansas defense. And then finally on special teams, kickers made all but one of their field goals. Kicker Matthew Shipley made field goals from 43 and 48. He missed from 42, but he ended scrimmage on a high note, hitting a 51-yarder in the 2-minute drill to kind of, quote-unquote, win the game for the offense. And then you had Kyle Ramsey make field goals from 38 and 46, the transfer that transferred in. And then Charlie Von Der Minden made a 42-yard field goal as well. So all these guys hitting their field goals, you got to love to see it, but it's going to still be interesting to see at the end of the day who comes out on top as our, true place kicker that's going to be kicking those field goals and extra points.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of the positions that Pittman said there's quite a bit of competition at right now to determine who really is going to be the day one starter. Depending on successes throughout the season, you could see a couple different names rolled out there potentially if somebody starts to get a little bit cold and starts missing a lot of kicks or something like that. So I think the expectation is that Shipley is going to be the guy, but there is, a lot of still yet to be determined on exactly how that's all going to pan out when it comes to game time kicks and how his mentality, translates into game situations. That's a lot of the kicker's game is mental side of the ball. So, with it being SEC defenses you're lining up against, that's got to, have a little bit of intimidation factor when you're out there early on in the season. So we'll see how it shakes out. High hopes that we're able to fill Cam Little's shoes, at least to some extent. We'll see.
Big ask. Yeah, big ask.
That is a big ask.
I was about to say, I mean, if you he was good enough in college that, he was automatic coming through. But the fact is, as a rookie, he went into Jaguars camp and won the starting job as a rookie. So if that doesn't tell you how good he was and, what you're having to replace, I don't know what will. But another guy that wasn't really mentioned in this kind of these stats here was that Pittman called out in his press conference was Devin Bale, the punter that just got put on scholarship. Pittman mentioned that, last week in a press conference, or maybe it was his first press conference before fall camp started, that he was a guy that he wanted to put on scholarship, and he did. And he said he had a heck of a day today with all of his punts being, fair catches, no returns, that he can hit some booming punts. And, I think after last year, that would be nice to see with the struggles on that aspect of the season last year. Unfortunately,
it was a weak spot for us for sure.
Yeah. And hopefully we don't have to see him do much work this season. That would be much preferred, but to know that you have that weapon, if you will, if you have to punt the ball.
Yeah, the ability to flip the field is huge in college football. Just even 10 more yards average on your punts, is tremendous. If we're able to gain something like that, that would be a tremendous get for us, because that's 10 more yards that your defense has the opportunity to make stops and get off the field. So being able to have a little bit more consistency, you're going to have to punt from time to time. You're going to have drives that stall out. So if you have confidence in your punter that you can really, kind of flip the field and things and definitely pin guys deep. If you're able to consistently get, punts within inside the 20, that's a weapon. It really is, because that puts a lot of pressure on the opposing offense at that point. If you're able to get them, within the 10, 5-yard line, something crazy, get them backed up in their own goal, that really does provide that much more pressure that your defense can work with. So it's definitely a good thing to hear. It's exciting. I'm hoping that translates, whenever we do have those situations in game, that we're able to depend on that and have somebody we can rely on to get us out of sticky situations.
Yeah, so true. And as we wrap that up, we'll hit more on football as we drop down to our preview, but we're going to flip over to basketball for a minute where, we talked about it, not much news to report on now as they're on their kind of summer break, if you will. They'll resume practicing end of August. But, rankings came out today, and Janelle Davis and Jonas Adu were named to the impact transfers list, with Janelle Davis coming in at that number 1 impact transfer spot and Jonas Adu coming in at number 23. So having two guys on the top 25 of impact transfers list is fantastic to see. Surprised to see DJ Wagner not be on this list amongst some other guys that transferred in. But, if that just doesn't add to the building excitement and, optimism about this upcoming season, I don't know what does.
Yeah, 1,000%. Everybody knew that Nelly Davis was going to be arguably the number 1 player coming out of the transfer portal. So being able to pick him up, add him to this team that's already going to be very, very talented, can provide a lot of impact. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's going to be exciting, and you can't wait for him to hit the court. I'll be excited to see when we announce those exhibition games and, how many of those we're going to have, because I think we're going to have a few, but it'll be exciting to get out there and get the first look at the Razorbacks under Coach Cal. Another exciting tidbit of news for Arkansas women's basketball. Haven't heard a ton about women's basketball in this overall offseason, but you have former player Sasha Goforth will be joining Mike Neighbors as a grad assistant coach for these this season. So, former player that, she was a great player at Arkansas, had some medical issues that kind of forced her to quit playing, and, to see her getting back to being around the game and that coaching world, that could be a potential future for her there.
Yeah, 100%. Wish her nothing but the best, because that situation that kind of ended her playing, if you will, that was unfortunate. I think we'd even talked about it at the time that we could see, potential to keep her around in this type of position and just see where she takes off from there. So exciting things. Hopefully, it can lead to big time career stepping stones.
Yeah, you hope so, and I can't wait to see what happens there. And we wish her the best luck. I'm interested to see the development. As we said, we haven't had much news, but as we kind of get closer, we'll talk more about it. Hopefully, this women's team can build on some of the momentum they found last year towards the beginning and middle half of the season. Towards the end there, they kind of fell off a little bit, but hopefully they can kind of bounce back. We did lose some key pieces, unfortunately, between Poffenberger and
Talia Scott was one of them.
Talia Scott, that's two big hits right there. That is not great, but hopefully we can kind of move on and bounce back from that. Who knows? We'll have to see what will happen with this Mike Neighbors team, where another guy that is probably going to be hot seat. Yeah, I was about to say. I think
let's be real about
it.
Don't want to beat around the bush. I think this year he's got to go out and bounce back from some of the transfers he lost, as well as some of the games that we lost late last year, and find a way to improve this team. And it might be hard to do, but I think that's the requirement at this point. And if things don't materialize, there needs to be some tough questions asked, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, when you have talent like that on the team and you struggle to make the tournament, it's not a good look. So
no.
As we jump over, Seth, your favorite sport is back. Arkansas soccer is getting back in action as they had their first exhibition game against Kansas, where they won that 5-1. You had Kelsey Euler named defender to watch by United Soccer coaches. The next match will be tomorrow, August 9th at 7 p.m. And then another match on Sunday at August 11th at 7 p.m. versus Seminole State. The one tomorrow will be versus Kansas State. The one on Sunday I know for sure is open to the public, free, no charge there. But this should be another exciting year of Arkansas soccer. I think they're going to come in preseason ranked pretty high once those are truly unveiled. But I mean, that's the expectations for this Arkansas soccer team and Colby Hale with the program he has built here at Arkansas.
Yeah, last year was extremely exciting. I thought we I don't want to say exceeded expectations, but I thought we had a really good year, and I think that will help us build some of the players we were able to keep, some of the players we brought in. This team's got potential to be just as good as last year, if not better. I think the expectation is that we're going to start the year top 15-ish in the rankings, but we'll see where things build from there. I know last year we knocked off several top 10 teams throughout the season. We had some good showings, had some tough matches here and there, but overall it was a really good season, and we had a long stretch of SEC wins in a row. And I'm hoping we can kind of repeat that and make a good push into the postseason. It was a really solid year. I want to say we made it to the semis or quarters.
I believe
last year.
that's
So it might have
right.
been quarters. But I had a really good postseason run.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. I'd have to go back. I hate that I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was either the quarters or the semifinals last year in the NCAA tournament. So I think if we can repeat that just keeps building momentum. If we can get even further and win the whole thing, great. But just as long as you're staying relevant, staying consistent, staying in that top, 20 to 15 or even higher, I think that's really what you can ask for out of this program to continue building and keep the success level high.
The answer is the second round. We were eliminated by Pitt.
Fair enough.
So as we get ready it is now time to jump into the defensive line talk for this episode, as that is the position group that we will be breaking down today. And before we jump over there, don't forget to check out Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own homemade handcrafted seltzer. where they are based out of Northwest Arkansas up here in Springdale at Core Brewing. Go check them out if you're in Northwest Arkansas. Fantastic place to hang out. Go grab they even have their in-house beers. Go grab a beer. Go grab a seltzer. They even have their newly released triple berry vodka soda that is fantastic as well. So go check them out. You got to give them great, give them a try. They've done great things with what they've done on the national market in the seltzer category, if you will. A fantastic drink. So go check them out if you get the chance. And are in Northwest Arkansas. If not, go to your local liquor store and grab you a case of Scarlet Letter.
Got a lot of good flavors, man. It's one of the better seltzers out there on the market, in my opinion, and they're just now kind of getting rolling. Lots more to come, and I think they're growing the brand quite well. They're getting national attention, which is a big thing, and they even make a lot of the Members Mark Sam's Club brand seltzers. Those come from Core. They're basically Scarlet Letter seltzers, just recanned for Members Mark, which is awesome. So go pick some up. It's delicious.
Very true. So it is now time to talk about the Arkansas defensive line, which could be primed to have a big year this year as they have a lot of experience returning, a lot of young talent. And we're going to just break down our roster for now. And we'll come back and talk about guys that we expect to see a majority of snaps, but we'll just run through this real quick. You got Nico Davalier, 6'4", 271, a junior. He did appear in 12 games last season, have career highs in 11 tackles, 3.5 tackles for losses, and 1 sack. You got Anton Junkaj, the transfer from Albany, 6'3", 272. He's a senior. He played in all 15 games for Albany last year and led all FCS with 15 sacks. Defensive lineman Cam Ball is back, 6'5", 324. He is a redshirt junior. He played in 11 games last year with 6 starts, career best 32 tackles with 1.5 tackles for loss and a forced fumble. Kavion Henderson, he is a freshman, 6'2", 261, a 4-star recruit out of the state of Alabama. So a great get there, highly touted. Can't wait to see what he does. You got Charlie Collins, 6'5", 261 freshman. He was a 4-star prospect and the number 1 player in the state of Arkansas and number 8 defensive lineman in the country. Expectations there. Hopefully he is able to contribute right away. Landon Jackson, 6'7", 280 senior. Surprised that he is back this year, but I am glad he is. Started all 12 games for Arkansas last season. First team all SEC, led the team in tackles for loss with 13.5, sacks with 6.5, and 44 total tackles on the season. You've got Eric Gregory, 6'4", 320, redshirt senior. He started all 12 games last season, had 16 tackles, 2.5 tackles for losses, and 1 sack. You've got Donovan Whitten, redshirt freshman. He moved from linebacker to defensive lineman during the spring. He is 6'3", 248. You got J.J. Hollingsworth, 6'3", 264, redshirt sophomore. No game action last year. You got Kiev Rose, 6'3", 314, redshirt senior. Played in all 12 games last season with 2 starts, 15 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. John Hill, 6'5", 254, redshirt sophomore, 4 tackles versus Western Carolina in the first game. You've got Ian Gefford, 6'5", 388 as a redshirt freshman. He did redshirt last year. Elijah Brown, 6'3", 376 as a sophomore. No stats last season. Quincy Rhodes Jr., 6'6", 280, a sophomore. He played in 9 games last year, mainly on special teams. Danny Solly, 6'3", 375, a junior, transferred in from BYU, but he transferred to Arkansas after being at BYU just the spring semester, where before that he was previously at Hutchinson Community College and played in 10 games. And rounding out the roster here, you've got Caleb James, 6'4", 272, redshirt freshman. He did redshirt last year, so no stats for him. But as we kind of round this back up the top, I mean, you've got guys that are going to be big contributors. You've got Landon Jackson, Cam Ball, Eric Gregory, the 3 that are experienced returners from last year. Guys that you want to talk about with a lot of potential that have been creating some buzz in camp. You've got Quincy Rhodes, junior, sophomore. Like we said, he played in 9 games last year, mainly on special teams, but he's been making buzz and strides in camp. Danny Solly's another guy. Ian Gefford, with that size, how can you not use him as, kind of a big run stopper guy coming in 6'5", 388? I mean,
it's a big boy.
Yeah. Other guys you got to think will have probably some contributions later on the season as they kind of adjust is, Kavion Henderson and Charlie Collins, two guys that were 4-star recruits coming in extremely talented. I think it's how quick they pick up the college game, and this defense will depend on how quickly you see them on the field and into this rotation.
Yeah, 100% on that. They could play quite a bit this year. They might not play a whole lot at all. I don't think either one of them will be red-shirted, if you will, by the time the season's all said and done. I think they'll probably get enough snaps to lose that red shirt eligibility. But, you've got a little bit of depth here, more so than a lot of people realize on this D-line with guys like Nico Dablier. I mean, some of these guys had pretty solid seasons last year. They just weren't on the field a whole lot. And so some of these guys really do have potential to come in and up their playing time compared to last season. But they're going to have to share with guys like Landon Jackson that can really chew up a lot of the tackles and stuff, that are just always flying around the ball. They're always in the right position. Somehow he finds himself in plays that he never should be in, considering he gets double teamed half the time. He's just that good of a player. And I thought Cam Ball, he had a good year last year and is being touted to have an even better year this year. So I think there is a lot of strength on this D-line where we could see even an uptick in tackles for loss, plays blown up from the beginning, that these guys are able to run some stunts and just completely blow up an offensive line, things like that. So, and you got to talk about a couple of these transfers. How well does Anton Junkaj, I believe is how you said it was pronounced, had a tremendous season last year with Albany leading FCS with 15 sacks. Can that translate to the SEC even at all? I mean, can he get half that? 7.5 sacks on a year would be pretty wild in the SEC. Is that possible? Is that another name that kind of comes out and jumps off the page throughout these games and he forces himself into the rotation? We'll see. He's somebody that I think could pick up a lot of playing time if, that translates to SEC caliber competition. But it's an exciting group of guys with a decent amount of youth to mix and sprinkle in with some of the returners and some of the transfers. We've talked about it in the past. That's exactly what you want at pretty much each position group. Is you want to have some experience, you want to have some transfers, and you want to have some very talented freshmen coming in that can kind of learn a little bit along the way and then be your experienced guys in years to come, as long as you can keep them around. That's one of the biggest question marks and sometimes points of frustration. But I think the really true testament to how good a job Travis Williams is doing, in my opinion, we should have never got Landon Jackson back. He should have went pro. So us being able to pitch to him, hey, we think you can develop even more. We're going to throw an NIL package at you, I'm assuming, to try to keep you around and really be the leader of this defense this year. And have somebody like him on your roster that can provide some leadership and share some of his knowledge. You see that even in the NFL, man. There'll be guys after games on the opposing team go talk to, one of the better linemen on the other team. Hey, you see with Aaron Donald in the past before he retired, he would share some of his tactics on, beating blocking techniques, just with different arm swipes and different spin tactics. He would be showing opposing teammates, defensive linemen, some of the young guys, some of his tactics like that. So having a guy like Landon Jackson that has a lot of tricks of the trade, has a lot of experience in the SEC, is preseason all SEC first team. I mean, he's going to be good. He was great last year. He's got potential to be even better. Having somebody like that lead your defense, that guys like Charlie Collins and Kavion Henderson can come in and learn from right out the gate, that provides so much more down the line. I mean, I think we're going to be getting dividends paid from Landon Jackson coming back this year, 2-3 years from now even. So I think that was one of the bigger stories, in my opinion. We talked about it quite a bit when it was announced that he was coming back, and then I'm still talking about it, that this is an NFL player that is on our roster right now for this year that's competing for us. He should be – most likely he would be, playing somewhere, at least maybe not starting, but at least getting rotational snaps in the NFL somewhere. So having somebody of that caliber on your team while they're still in college, that's a huge get. and I think can provide a lot of spark that a lot of the rest of these D linemen can build off of game in and game out.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, and when you think about it, the only concern that I might have with Junkosh, and I say this lightly because it's not like it's a big gap, but he could be a tad undersized as he's coming into, SEC play. But what he makes up in that size could be, what is the strength of his is maybe speed. I mean, you go watch some of his tape, the way he's able to get around some linemen. And
15 sacks, you got to be at least somewhat speedy to catch up to some quarterbacks like that. Generally quarterbacks have at least decent speed compared to linemen, for example. So tacking 15 sacks in, I mean, you've got to have some form of athleticism and speed to be able to track down QBs like that. So sorry to interrupt you there, but
no, you're
I
good.
would
That's
imagine he's some type of elite, specialty rusher.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's like you said, like this combining experience, you got Landon Jackson that's back for senior year. He's going to be able to mentor guys like Kavion Henderson, Charlie Collins that hopefully will be around a couple of seasons that kind of will step into those kind of, next season once Landon Jackson's gone. You think about who you would lose. You've got, Eric Gregory that's a redshirt senior. I mean, you don't know. Anton Junkosh is a senior, so you're going to lose some of these guys, but you're going to have these guys that are stepping up. Kavion Henderson, Charlie Collins, some underrated guys. I think you could see big development from is Ian Gefford, 6'5", 388. If you can develop that into a really great kind of nose tackle type of guy, you're going to have a stud defensive front right there. And I mean, another guy that we kind of hinted at earlier, Quincy Rhodes Jr., he's a sophomore, 6'6", 280, built very similar to Landon Jackson. It'll be interesting to see how much kind of rotation playing time he gets. Running four-man front, we're going to be rotating guys in, every few snaps to keep guys fresh. And I think that's a big thing that Pittman noted from. They're still kind of working out those last few guys that he wants to fit into that rotation, because like we said, who's going to get the majority of the snaps, your Landon Jacksons, Cam Balls, Eric Gregory. So those are going to be your key guys, probably, especially at least Landon Jackson. There's going to be for sure a third down guy. But other than that, the door's open for some of these young kids, even maybe these freshmen. If Charlie Collins can come out there and show that he deserves some rotational play, I mean, you could see him from the start of the season to develop into a key rotational piece by the end of the season if he picks up the college game and kind of has developed from a scheming standpoint and just a physical standpoint as he kind of learns and goes through some of these SEC games.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, he's a type of player that could come in and steal a starting position even. I mean, if he comes in and really takes on the collegiate game, understands positioning, understands how to, shed blocks and things like that. There's a lot of nuances that go into playing D-line that I don't think a lot of people realize. It's not just you line up and see if you can push the other guy over. I mean, there's a lot of technique even in your the way you move your hands as you're trying to beat a block. And so, I mean, there's just so much technique involved in footwork and stuff on how to get around offensive linemen. I mean, there's a lot there that doesn't meet the eye, I guess. It's kind of about the behind the scenes things that get lost in the sauce as these plays. There's so much going on. It's hard to sit there and just watch exactly what Landon Jackson is doing to completely obliterate an offensive lineman. Everybody knows that stunts and some scheming like that can help you beat an offensive line, but there's a lot of like one-on-one battle that happens for a D lineman to win in the trenches, if you will. So guys like Charlie Collins, if they come in with a little bit of competitive edge, they were really good in high school, had a lot of those things down, if you will, and that's why they were so good in high school. Can that translate and then, steal a position? It's definitely possible. I think he's somebody that could be that caliber of a player. But there's a lot of other talent on this team. Guys like Quincy Rhodes, I think he's going to have an increased role this year compared to last year. You saw his name off and on last year, had some highlights on special teams. His name was called several different times, but he wasn't just in the mix as much on the actual defensive side of the ball as much as you might would expect. But I think that hole is open for somebody to kind of bust up in there and really make a name for themselves. Especially, you got to think Landon Jackson is going to bring so much attention that he's going to be the Aaron Donald of our defense, if you will. He's going to get doubled a lot, I would imagine. So who out of the rest of this group can really step up and make these opposing offenses pay for doubling Landon Jackson? You're going to have that to be successful. You're going to have guys take advantage that Landon's getting doubled or Campbell's getting doubled or something like that. Who else can step up and really, be a run stopper, be a quarterback attacker, rusher, or you see it time and time again. Some of the best defensive players, as far as D linemen go, yeah, you can get to the quarterback, but on the plays that you can't, are you aware of what the quarterback's doing and able to get your hands up and swat down passes? Cam Ball is a specialist at that. So I mean, that's another example where you can have a big impact, even if you don't win your one-on-one battle with the offensive lineman you're going up against. And I think we've got the guys in place to be able to do that and then share those things down the line to some of the newer guys and some of the transfers. And so my hope is that this entire unit is fairly deep by the time we get to, kickoff week 1. And then, hopefully, by the time conference play starts, we've got a really solid unit here. I think we've got the potential to have that. I think Travis Williams and some of the coaching staff on defense, will have these guys ready. You already see it in the weight room. Some of these guys have really done tremendous things in the offseason. So I'm excited, man. I can't help but be excited about it.
Yeah, I think this group will be a key to this defense, especially with, like we talked about, a young linebacking core you have. They're going to be able to help them out on the front end. And then you've got our experienced DB room that's going to kind of help them out on the back end. That's going to, hopefully maybe take away some of the pressure that those guys have. And I think this group, like you said, has the potential to be really deep, especially like you said, guys are going to double Landon Jackson. But can you have guys that can step up and make them not have to, that they can't, or this other guy's gonna be able to break free and wreak havoc in the backfield the entire time? So it's one of those things where, as we continue to finish through fall camp, keep getting updates and see what the depth looks like, I think that's going to be key. But I mean, for the most part, who your core guys are going to be. Like we named Landon Jackson, Cam Ball, Eric Gregory. You're probably going to see Ian Gefford, Quincy Rhodes, Nico Davler, and Anton Junkosh make pushes there. Like we said, 15 sacks in FCS. Yes, that's FCS, but that's still a lot of sacks. So
can he bring it over and take advantage where Cam gets double and he maybe can come off fairly free? I mean, I think he's got potential to be a speed rusher, if you will, on the line. So we've got a lot of different skill sets that I think this line can bring to the table. That's definitely a good thing to have. So you're going up against the best of the best, though, in some of these SEC offensive lines. So it'll be tough sledding, I'm sure, at times.
Yeah, that's true. So we're excited to see where it goes as we kind of are winding up here. We only have a handful of position groups to break down, and that just means we're getting closer to the season. We're going to talk about, we still got the running backs to talk about and the defensive backs, and then we'll hit up special teams, and that should cover us for, this year's Arkansas Razorbacks team, and that should put us in line to be done by the first game of the season here. So, feel free to reach out, drop us any comments, let us know. And, as always, before we get out of here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Hogs on the Hill. You can find it like that, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. And, we thank you guys for listening to today's episode of Hogs on the Hill. And we will be right back here next week with our next position group breakdown as we get ready and inch closer week by week to the upcoming 2024 Arkansas Razorback football season. Until then, we'll see you guys next week.